From the Kaiser Permanente Studios, otherwise known as, well, more like Kaiser Permanente Studio B kitchen. John here, you there. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. Yes, it looks different. This is what happens when you have thunderstorms in the middle of the night and your cable gets knocked out. Show by Hotspot this morning, and I am going to go ahead and I'm ready for look, sound. So this is how we get things this morning. And I don't think I've ever done the show in the 10 seasons that we've been here. I don't think I've ever done from the kitchen. So mazel tov and congratulations to all of us. Apologize for the lag, all of that other kind of stuff that's attached. John here, you there. Here's the rundown for the morning. We're going to work backward. Noe DeMo from Bristol Rhythm is going to join us at 10:30. NPSL championship game is going on with El Fadelito this weekend. He's a glove winner, and so we get to find with him. And the season that they've had there in Bristol. 10 o'clock, our friend Dylan Butler from Major League Soccer and MLSsoccer.com. We get to find out. And there's news involving anything and everything going with his and things like that. And so we'll let you know what's going on there. We've got All-Star and that kind of test, who is now, and I don't know if now or in year 2, he's past first year of being an owner in Liga MX. And we get to catch up with our friend Marc Spiegel from Innovation in Charlotte because All-Star. So welcome to the morning show, my friend. Good to see
you. Hey, I could you were breaking up, but good to be on, John, and thanks for all you do for soccer in and around Atlanta and the South, and obviously excited to be on with you here from Charlotte, where we had sounds like it was rainy in Atlanta. It was rainy here in Charlotte last night as well, but skies look good, and hopefully All-Star game tonight is a good one.
I figured there might be a little bit of lag once I turned on all the buttons and everything. And my first question is the hardest one. Why did you want to be an MX and the rationale? Give me your background here as to why you wanted to pursue that.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, really it started, being in Atlanta for the last 15 years, kind of saw and was part of the maturation and start of Atlanta United and got the juices flowing. And fortunately, had a company that went public, and the next chapter, we decided to really look into investing in global soccer, and actually had a couple opportunities in MLS, but really started looking abroad, and it took us a couple years. Ultimately, kind of you start in England, and that's kind of, from an American standpoint, you're kind of naturally drawn to that. We see it on TV, and then you look at Italy and you look at Spain, you really start looking, and just, I won't bore you, but by happenstance, I happened to be at a dinner with a key luminary in Mexican soccer, and we just started talking, and that night I called one of my partners and I said, hey, let's look into this. We started peeling back the onion. We were like, oh my God, this has better economics, better upside, growth story. It's still in the early stages of really modernizing from a commercial and sporting standpoint. So, we've been extremely excited. We're more excited today than we were a year ago when we closed on it. That the potential for this league is unparalleled in global soccer.
I read somewhere that it was 200 different ideas or franchises that you were looking at.
I'm sorry, 200 different. It broke up. 200 different. I'm sorry. I caught 2 words.
200 different clubs. Where you wanted to go before you decided on Queretaro?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at over 280 clubs. So you've looked at that's probably 20 leagues. And then even within leagues, you look at first division, second, even some third division. For us, from an investment perspective, we have a very narrow focus on what we're looking for, and I think one of the challenges is really the business profiles of so many teams globally. I mean, we weren't really interested in investing in businesses that are losing 20, 30, 50, 100% margins every year. And I think that's where Mexico is pretty good in terms of teams are profitable and they're stable and their businesses are growing, and obviously with what we just did from an ownership perspective, some of the changes that were just made within the last few weeks and things on the horizon, there's so many levers that we can now pull to continue that growth story. And I think as I talk to other owners, I've gotten to know many from teams and leagues around the world. Our kind of first step is educating them on our league. And I think once people hear about it and really understand it, they have the same reaction that we did. It's like, oh my God, like, how did I not know about it? And it's amazing. So, and these are people from teams in the Premier League or La Liga or Serie A or the biggest leagues in the world. I think they're starting to take notice of what we're doing in Mexico. And obviously, I think we have a unique trait in that we really have two home countries, obviously Mexico, but because of the diaspora in the United States, I mean, there's so many fans. It's the largest, most consumed league in the US as well. So I think that's something that certainly works in our favor also.
Atlanta United was a bit of an influence at the beginning.
Yeah. I remember my wife was pregnant. Game started at Grant Field, Bobby Dodd, and we ended up buying tickets. I want to say at the end of the first year, and went to a couple games once it moved into the Dome, and then had season tickets the next year, obviously, which was a championship season. And you kind of caught we caught the bug. For us, we're both originally from Kentucky, and so transplants, we really got to put our arms around a new team and said, hey, like, this is who we're going to follow. And I didn't grow. I played soccer. Followed it a bit, but I wouldn't say that I was a huge aficionado. But really, when that was the with Almiron and John Martinez and Parkhurst, and so Brad Guzan, so many of those guys that were so influential in that run. I started taking notice, but then as I started reading more and more, I think what really got me was, and not so much the MLS fundamentals, but the business of soccer. And, I started consuming everything I could. And that was 2017, 2018. I had no inkling that, 2022 would arrive and we start to take a swing and say, hey, maybe we can write our own chapter here.
What has been the biggest you've learned in this first year of being an owner?
Yeah, look, I think
lesson.
From an American perspective, we do sports really, really well, both business, fan experience, commercial, all those things. And I think understanding that there's still a learning curve, that there are other ways to do things. It was paramount for us to not try to force our ways on a society. Really needed to embrace and adapt the local market and our city and our state and the league, and say we want to blend in here. And naturally, things are already moving. There's so many connection points between US sport and Liga MX anyway. I mean, you look at the NFL and the NBA and MLS and so many companies who especially straddle the border from a commercial perspective are involved in all of it. So I think that, I would say learning lessons as well as, learning how to deal with agents. But I think everybody has that same story, no matter what league you're in around the world. They can be, difficult, but obviously they do their job and represent their clients. But, it's a hard question because we haven't really faced, I want to say, like, major challenges or major obstacles that we did not prepare for. And so, knock on wood, we did our diligence and took our time. I'm sure there'll be something that'll come up, that we'll certainly have to face. But I think us as owners, you can always make decisions. Whenever there's challenges, you either run towards them and be aggressive to deal with it, or you kind of shy away from it. And we're certainly the type, younger people, like, we're going to run towards those and really say, hey, we're going to fix it. We're going to get it right. And also admit that when we don't get something right, like, I'd say probably, I was influential in, we are the Gallos Blancos. So I figured, hey, it would be great for our home fans to see us wear white. Right. And, that was not normal. And so we did that for a couple games last season. And, my social media was fun to read after that. But, I own it, and we're back to wearing blue and black at home.
Oh man. Who do you have on your speed dial that will help?
I'm sorry, you went out, but I think if you were saying if I needed advice, who do I turn to?
Yeah.
It's been one of the most eye-opening things. The soccer community, whether in the league, even in MLS or Europe or South America, Asia, I've gotten to know a lot of people, and so I'm fortunate that when I make a call or send a text, what do you think of this, or how would you deal with that? People react, and there's an overwhelming sense of we just want to help. It was very different. I came from the tech space, but also was involved in college sports in the U.S., and there was much more of a protectionist mentality than there is where people not only kind of lend a helping hand, they lend two helping hands in many cases, and most of the time it has no benefit to them. It's just, I don't know if they see me as like this young naive guy who needs a lot of help or what, but like it's been awesome, and we certainly try to pay that back, and pay it forward towards others who are asking for advice or our thoughts on this or that.
With an idea, and you want to how receptive are they to year? How receptive is the league on the whole when you have an idea about wanting to advance the league it's where you think it should be?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'm never shy of giving my opinions or making suggestions or coming up with new strategies. I was at dinner 2 nights ago here in Charlotte with several of the executives, and we talked about everything from the playoff structure to how early we'll to change. MLS obviously just changed the calendar. Does it make sense for us? We're already 2 games into our season, and we're still sitting here, not even August yet. And so, we talk about, how can we affect our calendar, and how would that help or hurt us in transfer windows, commercially, everything from broadcast to digital presence. I mean, like, there hasn't been a situation. Yeah, people kind of shut down things sometimes and say, well, that'll never work, or, it would be tough to get support for that. But, we're always going to look for ways to modernize and further the efforts to, I think our league is on the path to being one of the 4 or 5 biggest leagues in the world. And, to get there, it's not easy. It takes, it takes the willingness to accept change, maybe not embrace it right away, but to accept it. But I think as the ownership has been overwhelmingly, supportive, and we're together, and, we talk. I think there'll probably be at least 1 or 2 more new owners that come in the league in the next year or so. So I think as new blood comes in, new ideas come in, and that's something that we should not shy away from, being open to at all.
Would you like to sit there and put on spotlight on it and go, you got to do this? I mean, literally, what's a got to do that you think they need to do?
I think, I'd mentioned the schedule. I think we need to move the schedule back a month. I think because we have playoffs twice a year, we lose a lot of time in December that I think is highly valuable from a media perspective, but also a in stadium. I mean, kids are off school. You have, you see the leagues in the US. I mean, Christmas is a huge, the NBA, the NFL. I think if we're playing and playing throughout the month of December, and then, taking a little bit of a break coming out of that in January, and then starting again mid to late January, that also lines us up with the transfer calendar. Because right now, we started already. There's still 5 weeks left in the, we started 7 weeks left before the transfer window ends. And so our teams, us included, we have conversations, we have deals in place, and we have to make a decision. You have a player that, if a team, let's say a player's worth $2 million, a team's like, well, if we're going to, we want to see that player in preseason for ourselves. If you want him now, instead of paying 2, like we'll give him to you for 4, or we wait. And if that player comes in, let's say at the end of the window, now it's the end of August, a lot of our teams in the league, including us, play at, 6,000, 7,000 feet above sea level. So the time it takes to come in and acclimate, we've missed half to 2/3 of our apertura. And, I think we can certainly look at how do we manage that. Obviously with leagues, CONCACAF Champions League, international breaks, Gold Cup. I mean, all the fun stuff. Like, we have to manage that, but there's a lot of smart people in the room, and where smart people don't have answers, there's always ChatGPT or Claude.
How much time do you spend down there? How split between, say, Louisville or Atlanta and Queretaro?
A lot. I mean, have a house down there. I have 3 partners, and we're all down there a bunch. I mean, we have a mindset, and I think it's a little different but it's where I think things will get to, because these are big businesses and they're only getting bigger. This is 100% of what we do. This is not a side hustle, or we have our main core other businesses. So we've taken the mindset of being professional owners. And so we treat this no different than we would if it's not a 9 to 5, it's more like a 6 to 12, 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. type, or 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. type gig. But the city's awesome. I mean, that was one of the major reasons that we chose Querétaro. But just being down there, it's a really nice place to be. The weather's awesome. And like, we really like going there. So, and plus from Atlanta, I thought it was a bit of an omen that while we were going through the deal process, all of a sudden a direct flight popped up every day from Atlanta to Querétaro. So it makes it a lot easier.
You brought on some other investors recently, and what was that conversation like when they were interested in being a part of the collective? How much of an education was it for them when you're bringing in other investors? What was that process like when you're bringing in others from the outside to help?
It's a lot, but I think what we thought first was, like, we're building a team, and we talk about, we got to get it right from an ownership perspective first to get it right on the pitch. So it was really important for us to, when we said, hey, we were open to people and investing or co-investing with us, that culturally for what we wanted to do, and they really understood our strategy, because our strategy is not just roll the ball out and sell some tickets. It's brand creation. It's enhancing a presence. It's cross-border commercial business. It's technology and data. I mean, all of the things that I was listening to David Tepper last night, and I leaned over to our sporting director who's here with me, and I said, he was talking all about the new stadium, or the stadium project that they're doing here in Charlotte, and I said, see, like, that's the way people think about modern sports business today. It's not just about what kind of shin guards we wear, or how much we're out on the practice field. And so being able to communicate the strategy and the vision, and then having people align with that, it took a lot of conversations, but you wouldn't want that any other way. If you shortcut that process, that's why so many owners, we did a lot of studying why ownership fails, especially foreign ownership fails. And a big reason for that is kind of absentee owners. You trust other people to do it, but also, the people surrounding it. I mean, you can even look at kind of the tiffs at clubs like Chelsea, for instance. We didn't want any of that. So buying into the program, so to say, was key, and certainly thankful. The guys like Bertram, I mean, they're, much smarter than any of us, but they got it.
This is more than just, having a toy. There are a lot of owners out there that they want to go into FAO Schwartz or Sharper Image, and they want to get the radio controlled helicopter, the lava lamp, they want the vibrating chair, and they want to take all of it home with them. This obviously is not something where you're going into Sharper Image and going, I want that. like a Veruca Salt thing from Willy Wonka. You were looking at as an investment and improving it as an investment and as a property in the soccer landscape. Am I reading that right?
100%. I mean, look, if we wanted, we could go buy a nice boat at a Coney and and hang out there. But no, like we're like this is serious. This is a business. All of us, we didn't have to put our money here. If we want, I always joke, if we wanted to, invest in something, we could have invested in a widget factory and just had mailbox money every year. But we chose something that we believe has significant upside. We wanted to be early to the party. And I think you've seen, 2 other transactions in our league just since we did it that have all been very positive for us. I think you'll see, again, like I said, 1 or 2 more. But like we're in this is not for fun. Like this is a serious business, and we want the result of this to be a very positive outcome, whenever that time comes.
What advice would you give to other individuals, ownership, whatever, if they were looking at soccer as a property to invest in, own clubs or what have you? What advice give them about doing something like this?
Think twice. No. I think for us, once we got over we really want to be in this league mentality, and we were agnostic to that. We're going to find opportunity. We're not going to force opportunity. I think that was key. And so being open-minded to leagues and jurisdictions that may not be first, on your list initially. I also think that, you pay premiums you talk about FAO shorts, like you're paying premiums for shiny toys. So you have to think about, how do I really grow this? And what is, if I want to double or triple, like what is the path it takes to do that? And I think for us, like you look at England, for instance, and, most of the teams are outside of our price point. When you start having 3 commas as opposed to 2 commas in the Premier League, like it's not for us. But you look at teams in the English Championship, there might be 15 different variables in a season, and 13 or 14 have to go right for you to not lose money. And, the odds of that happening are next to nothing. And so as a business person, like we want to make money, like we want to grow. And so finding those places that have very stable and solid fundamentals, but also have, the upside levers to where they're not maxed out. Like if your only upside is selling players, like that's not a great investment, for at least in our opinion. So, we like places that are, connected with transportation, international transportation. But, we once we got past we really want to be in England, or we really want to be in Italy, that opened up the box for us to say, now we can really focus on what matters. And that's what led us ultimately to Mexico, and we couldn't be happier.
As the first U.S. group to invest in Liga MX, do you feel like you're the first? How do you embrace?
No, like we don't really feel any pressure. I think the countries are so linked that we don't necessarily feel like outsiders at all. And if anything, it's like this is great for our league. We want to be exposed more to the United States and to Americans. I mean, like I go, I joke about this, but I was down in Queretaro a couple of weeks ago, and I went to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch one of the World Cup games. You go there on a Sunday and the NFL's playing, and so I mean, our city, they're opening a second Costco, right? And we won a game last season. I took everybody out to Denny's after the game. So I mean, like you don't feel like an outsider. You like I'd say you would if you're in leagues that are much further away. My Spanish is okay. 2 of my partners are fluent. I think the funny thing and what's a bit serendipitous was my first job when I was 14 years old was at a Mexican restaurant. So, you feel like if anything, like you're part of them, they're part of you, and you know, music, culture, life. There are just so many ties between the two countries, and that'll continue. We talk about what we did was a borderless transaction, and we truly believe that.
Well, I kid
You got to find a way, right?
and dropping by and just enjoy the All-Star experience. And we can't wait to see how things continue to grow and evolve over at Queretaro. Just be safe and dodge the.
Appreciate you. Thanks for all you do.